industries everywhere were turned upside down. And this has meant job losses and upheaval for many people all over the world. But the instability has also meant that people are looking at a wider range of different opportunities. And of course, one of the hardest hit industries was the construction industry, but it's also shown that it's one of the most resilient sectors. This evening, we're going to be joined by Kevin Harrison from ASTS and Donna Johnson from Alpha Recruitment, who will talk to us about getting into the construction industry and the many benefits that could be gained from working in it. Kevin Harrison is the Managing Director of Advanced Safety Training Services, which is a company based in Southeast England that specializes in general health and safety, security, and first aid training. ASTS was established in January 1992 to meet the safety and health and environmental needs of small to large companies in the UK. Kevin himself boasts a wealth of experience from a career in the London Fire Brigade to many years facilitating health, safety, and fire safety training for companies in all sectors, ranging from retail to construction. Kevin will chat to us about training that's available for people in the construction sector, such as the Level 1 Health and Safety in Construction course, which is available here on MC2. We'll also be joined by Donna Johnson, who is a recruitment and sales professional that has specialized in various recruitment sectors over the last 17 years, with the majority being infrastructure, civils, and build. As a specialist in providing bespoke recruitment solutions on both permanent and contract appointments, as well as assignments at director level, Donna will talk through her presentation, which looks at the current market conditions for recruitment in the construction sector. Before I invite Kevin to speak first, I'd just like to ask you, our audience, to submit any questions for the short Q&A session that we have planned for the end. This will give both Donna and Kevin the opportunity to answer any questions you may have. You can do this by clicking the Q&A tab at the bottom of your webinar screen, or simply leaving a comment on the YouTube page that you're watching from. Please be aware that you will be on mute and this live session will be recorded. Okay, so once again, I'm delighted to welcome both Kevin and Donna to the MC2 series of webinars. Kevin, over to you.
Thanks, Ben. Good afternoon, everybody. So my job this afternoon is just to go through some of the most popular health and safety type courses that are going to help you if your chosen career is going to be in the construction industry. So let me just share my screen with you all, and we can go through some of the most popular courses that we have. Let's have a quick look. There we go. Hopefully you can all see that. So my company, as Ben pointed out, we've been running now since 1992 and just specializing in health and safety in general. To say my background's fire service, so still heavily involved with updating firefighters in all the latest in health and safety and protective equipment that they need to do their job. And likewise for people out there in the general industry. And one of the biggest areas we found that's produced a lot of work for us lately has been in the construction industry. And as Ben said, even though the whole world shut down, the construction industry is still carried on out there. And what we found is that the first sort of course that people come across to get into the industry is the CSCS card. So this can be, a basic level, as the green card showing on the screen now shows you for a labourer, but you can get different types of CSCS card for different areas of the job. Now, as Ben pointed out, we actually run a course, which is a Level 1 Health and Safety in Construction, which is an entry-level qualification. And once you've got that qualification, it's a lifetime one, so you haven't got to renew it afterwards. So to get your CSCS card to work on a construction site, which we found lots of different industries need, so whether you're a painter and decorator, a carpet fitter, or you're just going to be a labourer on a building site, this is the card that you need. So there's sort of several sections to it, really. The first section is to get yourself on a Level 1 Health and Safety in Construction course, which you can do in a day, or you can do it online, such as the course that we have. 40-question multiple choice at the end. But say once you've got this qualification, you can then move on and do your CITB Health and Safety and Environment test, which is a touchscreen test. So that particular test needs to be done at a test centre, and you can find your local test centre on the CITB website. And then once you've got those two parts to the puzzle, if you like, you can then apply for your green card as a starting point to get into the construction industry. And most employers will require that a construction worker has a CSCS card. Which jobs require it? Well, almost every construction job out there where you work on the site requires a CSCS card. And the obvious reasons really, why do we train anyone who's going to work in a safety critical environment? So that you are safe and your colleagues are safe when you're at work. So it's general health and safety. So your card itself is going to last between 2 and 5 years. And the cost of it, well, the level 1 health and safety in construction is anywhere between £100 and £120. And then your touchscreen test is going to be around £19.50, £20. And then the card itself, once you've got those 2 parts of the puzzle, is £30. So that gives you some idea of the starting point in training for construction. The next one we're going to look at, with my little dumper truck that just popped up, is the construction plant competence. So to drive your dumper truck or your 360 excavator operator, tower crane operator, etc., you're going to need a CPCS card or construction plant competence. The CPCS scheme shows that you have the skills to operate relevant machinery, and it also shows that you have a health and safety awareness of machinery you're operating. So very important, because a lot of the injuries caused on construction sites can be from plant moving around and lorries and such like. So how long does that last you? Well, the CPCS blue card lasts for 2 years and is non-renewable. The CPCS red card, I'll explain what they are, the differences shortly, lasts for 5 years and is renewable. The cost of that is anywhere between £500 and £2,000, and it depends on the machinery that you go for in your chosen career. So the 2 types of card I just mentioned on the CPCS card. The red card is basically one that where you've had your training, you've done your touchscreen tests for that particular area you're going into, you've done your CPCS theory test on that part of machinery and a practical test. But for you to go on and get your blue card, you also need to complete an MVQ in the category that you're applying for. So you start off with your red card, and then moving on to your blue card, you will need an MVQ. And then obviously, once you've got your blue card, you're going to renew it, onwards every 5 years. Another one that pops up quite regularly, and we're asked to run these courses quite regularly, is the SMSTS. And a lot of you might have heard of that one. And the next one we've got on our list, which is the Triple STS. Lots of S's in there. So site management safety training. So where can you acquire it? Well, you can get all the details on the CITB website. And there's lots of companies out there that will run this for you as a 5-day block or 1 day a week over 5 weeks. So it's going to give you that black card. And why do you need it? Well, the SMSTS certificate shows that you have the knowledge of health and safety practices, construction design regs, risk assessment and other construction practices. And if you're going to be a site manager or project manager or site supervisor, this is the card that you're going to need. Again, this one's going to last you 5 years once you have it, and you're looking at around £500 to £600 as a cost to get that actual certificate and card. And again, I'll reiterate, it's going to take you 5 days to do it, or one day a week over 5 weeks, depending on the company you choose to do the training with. Throughout the pandemic, what we found is that lots of companies like us are running courses remotely. So that will be a trainer remotely by Zoom, similar method to what we're using now. And then you go online and do your online proctored exam to get the results. Because still we're finding, I mean, we're just about to go back in the classroom, but lots of training companies are choosing to do this training remotely. The staple, first aid at work, something that we obviously, we've been doing for many, many years now. And like all industries, you need it. The Health and Safety at Work Act says that we all need to have first aiders at work. And that depends on the risk of your workplace. So if you worked in an office environment, for example, you might just need a 1-day course that covers all the basic ingredients that you need. However, if you're going to work on a construction site, pretty much like working in the emergency services, where the injuries that you may see on a construction site are going to be worse than a paper cut, if you like, in an office, you're going to need proper first aid at work training. So the easiest way to get your first aid at work qualification, if you haven't already got one, it's now a 3-day course. You can book it online with a local provider, but you can't actually do the course online. You can do something called a blended learning course, where one of the days is all online theory, and then you're in the classroom for 2. But unfortunately, with all first aid training, it can only be done in the classroom. So why do you need it? Well, I've already said that, the Health and Safety at Work Act says that everyone needs to have first aid in the workplace. So you need someone in the workplace that can render first aid, call for an ambulance. And if they're off, you need replacement. So you're going to need someone to cover holidays and sickness. And normally the ratio that they use in a workplace is 1 per 50 employees. And obviously, if the risk's higher, you're going to need more first aiders. Which jobs require it? Well, do you know what? Out there, everyone really needs to know first aid, even if it's not for your job. It's a good thing to have for your family. But in construction, managers really, site manager, site engineer, project managers. But from the way I see it and my experience, is something that everyone should have. Your certificate's going to last you 3 years, but you wouldn't have to do 3 days again. You can get away with a 2-day refresher as long as you take your refresher within 1 month of your certificate running out. And the cost, well, anywhere between £250 to £350. And please remember, it's not just a Red Cross or St John's course. There's many providers out there, including us, that can do this course. So it isn't just their course. It's just a health and safety requirement. Another one that pops up quite a lot is asbestos awareness. And obviously, in my job, in my career in the fire service, it's compulsory for us to wear breathing apparatus in fires. So many years ago, it wasn't. So it was always a risk that some of the smoke and the atmosphere you're breathing in maybe contained asbestos. We're all aware of this now. So any job where you'll be working on a build before the year 2000, you're going to need to understand asbestos and where you're going to find it and how you deal with it. So examples of these occupations are general maintenance workers, electricians, plumbers, and everybody else on that list. So, if you're thinking of going into that line, or you're thinking of changing the career and going into any one of those jobs, then asbestos awareness is something you should add to your CV. How much does it cost? Well, a lot of the time now you can do a perfectly adequate course online. So you're looking anywhere between £10 to £25. You can do it in the classroom. So if the risk is a bit higher, then a classroom course is recommended for a day. But most of the time, an online course will suffice. How often should you do the training? Well, in the regs, it sort of mentions every 12 months. So again, it doesn't take you long to complete online, but it's a knowledge that you need to have, and it's worth having. And again, that's a good one to have on your CV. As I mentioned earlier on, we had the SMSTS, and here's the other one with all the S's in it. So triple STS, or Site Supervisor Safety. Why do you need it? Well, again, it's going to help you understand the health and safety. And if you think about it, working on the construction site with all these materials, trip hazards, working at height, excavators running around, confined space, electrical cables, you name it, every hazard is there. So you need to understand this, especially if you're going to be a site supervisor. The actual qualification itself is going to last you 5 years, normally between £200 and £300 as a cost. It's going to take 2 days to complete. And again, if you look on the CITB website, you'll find lots of providers on there that can actually run the course for you. And as I said earlier on, these courses can be run sort of remotely, so with a virtual trainer via Zoom, so you can do it from home, and then you'll do a proctored exam online. Which jobs require it? Well, most jobs where you have supervisory responsibilities, such as team leader, foreman, ganger, site supervisor, they're going to need this particular CSCS card. So if you're going to start at the bottom and hopefully move up, so you've got your green card, and then you've been offered the job as a supervisor, then you're going to need to move on to the next card, which will be this one. And then after that, it's your SMSTS. The ECS card, okay, if you're an electrician working on site, you're going to need one of these. So again, it shows that you've met the health and safety standards of the electrotechnical industry. It lasts between 18 months and 3 years, depending on the type of card that you need to get, whether you're a labourer or an actual skilled worker. 48 to £60, depending on the method of application. And you can acquire it by, again, applying to the ECS website. Usually requires to have BS 7671 qualification, health and safety certificate, and sometimes an MVQ. So you need to look online to see what you need in addition to be able to get the card. Which jobs require it? Well, the main job that the ECS is required for is the electrician, as well as anyone else working in the electrotechnical industry. So they're just 7 of the main courses that we've picked out that we think would be a benefit to you if you want to get to work in the construction industry. As I say, the first hurdle, if you like, the first stepping stone would be your level 1 health and safety in construction, which gets you on the way to getting your green card to actually work on a construction site. And then the other cards, well, they're just there for the different types of area you want to work in. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of some of the areas that you need to think about in training when you're going to join the construction industry.
That's great, Kevin. Thanks so much.
No worries.
Yeah, appreciate that. Okay, so over to you, Donna. Now you're going to talk to us a little bit about recruitment in the construction industry.
Yeah, that's right. So good afternoon, everybody. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm just sharing my screen with you now to talk through our presentation over at Alpha. So I thought it was important, first of all, just to kind of talk to you a little bit about Alpha Recruitment, how it came about, you know, where we're from, and that we're obviously a good, credible agency that operate within the market sector that we're talking about today, which is construction. So we were established in 2008, so we've been trading for 13 years. We're touching £10 million turnover, so you know we're not a huge agency, but we like to say that we're a small specialist bespoke agency really that operates within a set sector. We've got multiple office locations, which allows us to have national coverage UK wide. We are predominantly a project delivery based business, so a lot of the things that we're involved in have a start and an end date. And they're project driven. So touching across the various different sectors within civils, which I'll kind of move on to construction, all the different sectors that we kind of operate in, there's still a lot of investment within the sectors that we kind of work in. Within the team that we've got, through management and the consultants we've got combined 80 years experience within this sector. So we've not just been we're not new kids on the block effectively, you know, we've been doing it a while. We know what we're talking about. And like I say, we're fully immersed within the market that you might be looking to get into. We do a mixture of short-term temporary assignments and also permanent appointments. I'd say 95% of our business at the moment is around the temporary market, and we'll move on to the reasons why, and obviously the market conditions that's kind of affected that, I suppose, at the moment later on the presentation. As most businesses, we have to adhere to standards within the sector that we operate in. So we are members of APSCO, which is a recruitment government body, CHAS, Safe Contractor Scheme, TICA, which is a specific thermal insulation governing body, and we are the only agency in the country that are members of that. And like I say, everything that we do is based on relationships in what we do. So we don't just kind of go in there and provide labour. We look for repeat business with clients that we've been working with for many years, and we also try to keep our candidates in work so that they trust us. We've got a good working relationship with them, and obviously the relationship kind of evolves. That just gives you a little bit about the background of Alpha and what we're a little bit about. This kind of shows the areas that we cover. So all the things there that we were kind of talking on, really, that Kevin was talking about, the different training that you can kind of get to get foot in the door on construction. Construction itself is a very wide, broad term in terms of what that can actually mean. So we kind of break that down into more specialist sectors that allow us to become, as we've said, specialists within the markets that we operate in. So we do building and construction, civils and groundworks, industrial services, M&E, scaffolding and access, structural steelwork and general engineering, renewable energy, shop fitting interiors, and manufacturing, warehouse and logistics. So they're the areas that we kind of do cover and specialize in, where we're kind of not we do say we're not a one-stop shop. We don't kind of touch on anything that we are not able to deliver, or that we've not got a footprint in that market already, unless there's a route to market that makes it viable for us, and we know that we can get good quality labour to kind of provide into those sectors. I think, again, this kind of just touches on what Kevin's saying. So these are some examples of what types of jobs that you can get within the market that we're kind of talking about through Alpha. So we split them into two terms, which are blue collar and white collar trades. Blue collar means very much, you were talking probably about the entry level card, the blue card, the CPCS, the machine operator type cards, that kind of thing, really. So probably three, maybe potentially 4 runs up the ladder there that you need these cards and training for. But bricklayers, labourers, carpenters, joiners, machine ops, steel fixers, pipe fitters, the list is kind of goes on, really. And that's not obviously all that we do. That's just pointing out some of the main ones that we kind of cover within the market sector. And then you can move on to some of the things that, again, you heard Kevin mention there with regards to the triple STS, the SMSTS, the asbestos. So things like site managers, working foremen, supervisors, project managers, site engineers, contracts managers, anything really within that health and safety environment at that level where you're managing people. Obviously that's the kind of level that you need to be trained to in order to be able to deliver that work. There's a couple of things in there that we do also kind of cover, which are more, rather than site-based, they're more office-based positions. So quantity surveyors, estimators, planning engineers, commercial managers, they tend to have a little bit involvement at sites, but they tend to be office-based positions. So the health and safety element doesn't come into it to such a certain extent, but certainly these are very sought after in the marketplace right now in terms of what we're looking at, and they're still quite prevalent in permanent recruitment as well as just temporary. It's a little bit small on here, so I'll just kind of run through. Obviously, current market conditions are key right now in terms of what's kind of happening and the impacts of some big changes in the market really over the last 12 months. I think, as Ben mentioned, obviously it's almost a year to the day, isn't it, yesterday, that the first national lockdown began. And there's been massive changes within the sector that has had big pulls on the workforce market. However, despite that, construction sector is particularly one that has managed to outgrow the economy. It's not stopped. There's still investment into the market, and quite a lot of investment in the market. So it's certainly not, we talk about recession-proof markets and things. We can't say that it's that, but it's as close to it, I think, as it can be, because it is project-driven. One of the main things, obviously, that has come into effect is Brexit, which I think has been a little bit overshadowed with obviously COVID just recently. But that was the first thing to impact the market. And I think people were a little bit, either for or against, regardless of what it was. Obviously, it's the situation that we were in, and it was always going to have an impact on the UK labour market effectively. And overall, as I put there, overall employment levels continue to grow, particularly within this sector. It's not slowed down. It's, if anything, it's kind of grown momentum. So the challenges that brings are obviously supply versus demand. We need more workers. That is the biggest headache for us as a recruitment business right now. It's not the fact that the jobs aren't out there. It's the fact that we need good quality candidates that are already involved within the market or looking to join the market. because there are always skill shortages in terms of what we kind of do. And that leads back into the EU movement of residency with Brexit. A lot of skilled workers that worked within this sector at middle level middle level status have returned to the country of origin due to Brexit and, you know, visas and kind of things like that, really, which has put a big strain on supply of those workers. So it you know, that, like I said, it goes back to the supply versus demand. It's the biggest headache in the market right now is obviously having the workers to deliver the work that's out there. So it is a very buoyant, exciting market to join if this is something that you're interested in doing. Just a little stat there. Obviously, the increase in demand is the same with anything, has caused an increase in rates as well. So it's actually said that from January to February this year, it's driven earnings up by 6.1% within the construction sector. So, you know, when you are looking to kind of get into this again, because of the demand, it's not an underpaid kind of role, if that kind of makes sense. It's one that is holding strong and is actually, like I say, it's driving rates up. So so again, a lucrative market to get into if that's what you want to do. The next biggest thing that obviously everybody's been talking about for the last 12 months minimum is COVID and the impact that COVID has had on the market conditions. So flexible workforce has been absolutely fundamental to operating within most projects and most businesses in the market. So there's a lack of uncertainty, which effectively means that people aren't looking to take on permanent staff and increase headcount numbers, but there's still work to deliver. So what that's meant is that they need to get that workforce on a temporary basis. It allows them the flexibility to take them on and release them as and when they need to either deliver a project or get a certain element done, or just even plug gaps somewhere where they've got skill shortages. And that's one thing that that clients in the market have embraced embraced wholeheartedly, really, in terms of how they still manage to successfully deliver projects with regards to sickness, people being off with COVID, self-isolation, that kind of thing, really. And again, like I say, that kind of feeds into, like I've just said, with regards to temp versus perm. It's a lot more cost effective to take somebody on a temporary basis because there's no add-on costs. So there's not the risk, first of all, of taking that person on and them not working out. There's not the fees of recruiting that person. There's not the add-on costs of national insurance, pension, healthcare, that kind of thing. It's allowed people to come in, do the job, and because they're not sure how long that order book is going to last, with the market conditions, to basically do that without aiding or sucking out too much of cash within the business, where they're going to have to further down the line make redundancies or changes in quite a volatile market. Workload and work-life balance, and obviously there's been lots of talk about physical and mental well-being, which has been hugely important. And a lot of people, I think, have found it very, very difficult in this time with the changes and how we've had to adapt to changes. And you just get used to something and something changes again, and it's taken a toll, I think, mentally more than physically on people, not just obviously getting and contracting COVID, but obviously how they deal with the mental effects of not being in your workplace, masks, increased health and safety on site, how they kind of deal with it, just the impact of just generally what's happening around them and maybe to their families and colleagues and things. So it's took a toll on everybody, I think, but obviously workload, as we've said, still needs delivery and projects need to be finished. So another thing is obviously workplace anxiety. We've talked about health and safety a lot, and a lot of these guys are out on site, so they're working in open spaces. As long as it's kind of out on construction site, they're still able to kind of operate and do their job. But obviously where they've had to come internal, so interiors businesses, for instance, things that are inside, that's obviously been very, very different. And just generally, I think people coming back to the the workplace in general, working within an office environment, which at one point everybody just took for granted, is not there for everybody at the moment, and it is causing real kind of issues, and businesses having to put extra measures in place to kind of manage that, really. But I think, like I say, another stat here is that I think due to a lot of things, I mean, I do really feel for children or kids that have gone through university or paid for the privilege of potentially going through university within this time, because they're paying for it, but they haven't had the experience of it. They haven't been able to do things. They haven't kind of like, got the full experience of being at university, really, which I think experience, as well as the educational side, is a lot of things. Well, one of the main things that people go to university for, really. And it's showing that because of that, there's been a massive switch in terms of aspirations of our younger generation. So a third of 16 to 21-year-olds are less likely to choose university education now than before COVID. And 42% of young people are opting for apprenticeship schemes and vocational courses that allow them to kind of get into the workplace and really, I think, capitalise on the market, particularly within the construction sector. So like I say, I think the biggest challenge within all this, particularly for the construction sector as a whole and us as an agency, is finding good quality people to be able to kind of fulfil our clients' needs, really. I've just put a little bit in here about what our clients are kind of saying and how we've managed to be able to adapt to things like this. And like I say, in regards to what we kind of do, our clients and candidates obviously are everything to us. Our clients, we've been able to adapt, we've been able to kind of show versatility, we've been able to be bespoke to what their needs are, and basically gone on this journey with them over the last 12 months to ensure that they've got what they needed from us. So there's just a few comments in there about, what our clients have kind of said and how we've supported them. Just to show you, again, just the background and versatility of Alpha, I think. And then more importantly, maybe from you guys looking to come into the sector, is about what our candidates say about us, because equally, I think when people think about recruitment, it's always they think about the clients first. But in the actual fact, it's a very candidate-driven market at the moment. And without our candidates, like I say, there's no point having the jobs or having the vacancies and the client relationships, because we can't fulfill their needs. So it's also important that, we get the candidate base, that we look after our candidates, and we really do. We take a lot of effort in terms of looking after our candidates and making sure that they get the right pay, they get the right working conditions, that that they're looked after, and that they're appreciated as even if as a temporary staffing member, that they're felt valued, and they believe they're doing a good job. We do things like employee of the month still, and we send hats and merchandise and things out to them and things like that, really to make them feel as though they can work with us long term. So we've got 305 Google reviews at the minute that are 5-star positive reviews, which within the sector is it's a massive achievement, and it just shows that we're a good business to work for. So I think this is all leading up to, obviously, if you are looking to get into this sector, we've talked about the types of roles that you can get into, how buoyant the market is, the training that you kind of need to that you will need to get into that, starting right at a green card level, to just give you access to health and safety on site, and work all the way up to kind of good white collar positions that are senior management, really. So I don't know if this will be circulated around, but obviously you can visit our website for all current live jobs if you're interested. You can go on our LinkedIn page. We obviously advertise a lot of jobs through Indeed. We've got a big social media presence. So yeah, obviously if you're interested, I'm more than happy to pass my details on and look on those if you're interested in applying for any. But I hope that gives you an understanding of what we're about, and I'm hoping to any questions that anybody has at the end.
That's great, Donna. Thanks so much. That was really interesting insight into the state of the workplace today as well, with Brexit and with COVID. So fascinating. We do have a few questions in from our viewers. Let me see. The first one here that I've got is, what kinds of training courses are available, and which would you recommend I take before applying on site? Maybe Kevin.
Yeah, I'll jump in there. So if this particular person hasn't worked on site before, if he's got the time to do it and the funds to do it, definitely first aid qualification, definitely go for his CSCS green card as a starting point. So level 1 health and safety in construction. Again, if you've got time, a fire safety certificate, you can get that done online as well. So fire marshal, fire awareness, that sort of stuff, and manual handling. Again, some really good core subjects, but it will make you more attractive. I'm sure Donna will sort of back me up on that one. So the more you have on your CV with the basic sort of safety qualifications, health and safety ones, it just makes the person more employable. And it just, from my point of view, as an employer as well as a training organisation, if someone comes to me with more qualifications, it just means I haven't got to spend the money and time getting them upskilled, so I can get them to work quicker. And I'm sure Donna will sort of back me up on that one.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think minimum requirement is your CSCS card to get on any construction site, regardless of how in depth how much your involvement is with that. Basic health and safety is fundamental, and obviously with the market that we work in, no client out there at the moment, well I think ever since I've worked in this sector, will accept anything other than an entry level CSCS card. But yeah, like you said, the more tickets that you've got, the better chance you are, because obviously if you're wanting to stand out from another candidate that hasn't got as many tickets, then you are always going to be the favourable candidate in terms of employment. So the more you can do, the better. I think definitely in regards to what Kevin's saying, yeah, definitely.
Okay. I have another one here asking, because of Brexit and this person will be moving back to the UK from abroad, will they have to retake all training modules again, all health and safety training, or will it still stand?
It depends on when they did their qualification and how long they last. So we get asked this an awful lot with some of the security qualifications that we provide. If they've been out of the industry too long, then obviously they would have to retrain. It just depends what the dates, the end dates are on their certification. So they'd need to have a look at that first. And then obviously, it's their own knowledge then, isn't it? If you did a health and safety qualification 10 years ago, it may be a good idea just to refresh now, because things have changed, rules have changed, the way people work and think about health and safety has improved an awful lot over, say, the last 10 years. So I'd say the first port of call will be to check your certificates you have got, see if they're still in date, and then ask yourself that question, have I got the knowledge? Do I feel confident to work in that environment? Am I safe to myself and other people? I think they're the questions you need to ask, really.
Okay. Donna, do you have anything to add to that?
Not really. I think from our perspective within the market, it's been difficult throughout COVID pandemic to book training, particularly if it can't be something that's done online. So there has been delays in terms of that. Obviously, there's been a big demand for it. So I know that some of the governing bodies have put like an extension. So for instance, like a 12-month grace period on certain cards, not all. So yeah, I think it depends. Obviously, the certificate that is expiring, or what it is specifically that they're looking at. But I think, like Kevin said, I think from that perspective, first aid and things like that, things change so quickly. And I think particularly even now, I do believe that probably things will change again with the way the world is having to adapt to the situation that we've been kind of thrown into, really. So I think first aid and things like that absolutely are paramount with everything that's kind of going on at the moment. So, but yeah, I think just check your end dates, like Kevin said, really. And if there is a way that we could get them quickly into this marketplace and back into it, then obviously clearly we would do that.
Okay, great. I have an interesting one here, which is somebody's asking, is it possible to make the move from on-site to the office, and does training allow for that kind of progression?
I don't know. You're on, Donna. Go on.
I think if anything, I think moving from on-site to an office environment is an easier move than moving from an office environment to a site-based role. because like Kevin said, you know, at the end of the day, the level of detail you have to go into on site, there's a lot more hazards on a construction site or an external site as opposed to in the office. They're very different environments. So probably if you've got certification to be on site, it's likely that you're already covered to go in an office environment, if that kind of makes sense. So I think for me, the switch would be a lot easier to go that way than it would be. You'd have to upskill, I think, to go the opposite direction. Would you agree, Kevin?
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, definitely, 100%. You haven't got the hazards there in the actual office environment, have you? So, yeah, totally agree with whatever you said there, Donna. So, yeah, I think that it'll be an easier move. I mean, if I take from my own career and going from an operational firefighter point of view, and then into an office environment, which is how I ended the career in a training role, is completely different, and yeah, different way of looking at things, but an easier transition, I'd say, than going from an office out onto site again. And again, you know, as Donna said, you know, the training that you would have received to go on site will be a lot more intense that you would need to have to work in an office, for example. So to work in an office, you don't need to have a CSCS card or a health and safety qualification. You might need a first aid and a manual handling if that particular role requires it, and certainly a fire safety awareness one, but you wouldn't need the health and safety level that you would need to work on site. So yeah, an easier transition, I'd say.
Yeah.
Okay. A very vague or broad question, not vague question, but a broad question, and it's, what do I need to start my career in construction? So from the very basic level.
Yeah, again, I think we sort of touched on it a bit. And the first slide I brought up on my presentation was all about, and as Donna sort of said, you know, every area of construction now needs you to have a basic health and safety qualification, and you know, you're going to need a CSCS card to get on site. You're not even going to be allowed on site without one now, and to get that, you're going to need to do your basic health and safety and your touchscreen to get your at least, you know, your basic card to start with. So there's no way around that. Everyone has to do it. And you learn a lot anyway. So it's going to help you protect yourself and your colleagues when you're at work.
Yeah. I think one thing, just to touch on that, and one thing we encounter a lot of people that have done the entry level to get onto a construction site. So they go through the course, they'll do the touchscreen test, but then they never apply for the card. And I know that sounds stupid, but a lot of clients will not take just the fact that they've done it and they've got a certificate. They need to see the physical card with a photograph on as ID to get onto that site, because they can be audited at any time, and that needs to be present and with them. So I would say, just to make sure that anybody that is going into that they follow through the whole process. And I know it probably sounds like an extra £30, and people probably think, oh, you know, I've already done it, it doesn't matter. But I think I'm just putting it out there that it's worth the £30 and to definitely do it, because some clients will turn people away even though they've gone through all that without having the card. So I think just to reinforce that, I think that's something that we see quite a lot. So don't go through it all and then just don't complete it, really, because it could still hinder your chances in getting on to work. Some sites with some particular big blue chip clients, they need to see it.
Is enforcement an issue in the sense that, you know, people will look for evidence of training on site?
Yes, massively. Yeah. Every time we send somebody to site, we can't, even though as an employment agency, there's certain checks that we have to do to be compliant. It's a very compliant industry sector. It's compliance is everything in the sector that we work in. So as well as doing the normal basic checks of like right to work and things like that, we have to check that cards are in date. We have to see proof of those cards, and we even have to send copies of those cards to the client prior to starting, so that when they turn up on site in the morning, they know that who's turning up is the person that has done those qualifications, if that makes sense, which is why the card is ultimately so important, because it's a picture related ID card.
Yeah, and I think the other important thing, if I look at it from a emergency service point of view, and most of us think when it's self-compliance and you have to sort this stuff out yourself, whether you run a small building firm or you work for a large one, it's all very well trying to get away with certain things, but when it all goes wrong, when someone gets injured on site, that's when people start looking at certificates and cards. And that's when the fines and imprisonment start, because that's how serious this stuff is with regard to the Health and Safety at Work Act and all the rest of it. So I think, you know, that it might get you a shortcut, but in the long run, if something goes wrong, then it all goes wrong very quickly when people start looking. So there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's great. I think we've covered a lot now today already. So thank you both for your time and insights. Is there anything else you guys would like to add before we head off?
Donna?
I don't think. I mean, like I say, if anybody is particularly interested, you know, I know I'm repeating what I said earlier, but just the main points really, that this is it's still a growing market. I think it's a good market to be involved in. It offers you a career. So even if it's basic level, if you've got aspirations to work within this sector, and there's lots of choice within the sector to kind of work within, you know, it is a very good career choice right now. And we are looking for people to enter this market. You know, there's longevity in terms of assignments, you know, careers and things like that. So please, if it's, take it seriously. It is a good career to enter, and it's something that is, if you've got a genuine interest, it's an easy transition to make with the right training.
Great.
Yeah, and from my point of view, thanks for the opportunity to come on today. But like many training companies out there, you know, we've seen an increase in people coming on board for health and safety training. We've developed some great packages to help people train from home, basically, during the pandemic, which gives a greater area. Logistically, we can cover a greater area. And we've had some great feedback from some of the students on what we've done. And there's lots of different companies out there doing lots of different training courses. So bear that in mind if you're going to think about your career in construction, because training has got to be the first step before you speak to someone like Donna, who's going to get you a job in construction.
Yeah, definitely.
Super. Okay, well, that's it for now then. I'd like to end this session by saying thank you for logging on and participating. And we always appreciate your support. I'd also like to remind you that we did mention the Level 1 Health and Safety in Construction course, and this is available here on MC Squared. I'd also like to thank our sponsors at myacademy.com. My thanks also to our production team for their work in bringing this live stream to you. And finally, I'd like to thank both Kevin and Donna for their really invaluable insight today. It's been a pleasure talking with you. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.